You need, you're all good?
Yep.
Okay. Okay, so we're gonna start with legs up the wall. So like I said, if you don't, if you're not really loving the bolster underneath your lower back, you can always take it out. So you don't necessarily need it. Okay. It's nice for the lower back. So you can either try to lift your hips up onto it, or you can press your feet into the wall to lift your hips up, and then you can slide your bolster underneath. But you just want to make sure that your hips are nice and close to the wall. So you might have to adjust as you get there. And then there might be some space. If it's uncomfortable for hips right against the wall, you might be a little bit further away, or you might take a deeper bend into your knees. But essentially, you just want to make sure that your body feels really supported. Okay, and then hands can come over top of your belly, or they might come down beside you, or you can even take the arms overhead if you want to open up into chest and shoulders. Okay. And then nuzzle your chin slightly down towards your chest, so your back of your neck is long. And you can begin to walk your shoulders, placing them underneath your body. So shoulders are away from your ears. Allow your eyes to close. And just start to feel into the environment around you. So tapping into your different senses. You may just notice the temperature of your space. You might notice a tactile quality, the feeling of your clothes against your skin. Maybe there's some background sounds around you, perhaps other people that are around, or noise from the street. Just any sound that's kind of this reminder of where you are. And although our home yoga space might not be distraction free, that when we just acknowledge where we are, it allows us to still be present. So we lessen that expectation that this practice is going to go perfectly smoothly, that there might be some distractions that come in from the outside world. But let those just serve as a reminder of where you've landed, of where you are in this moment, and even as a tool to bring yourself back to presence, back to this moment. Now, at the same time that you're perhaps noticing the sounds or even the stillness or silence around you, can you start to acknowledge your own internal sounds? So notice the soft hum of your breath. Maybe even allowing your breath to become a little bit more audible. You might even start to just hear the body. So a little bit different than our normal idea of hearing is to start listening to those gentle whispers of self. So I truly believe that our body is a vehicle of which the soul speaks to us. So those deep yearnings, that inner wisdom, knowledge, gut feeling, or instinct, that's our higher consciousness sending us just messages of what we need in those moments. So you might even just start to notice this deeper listening that's available. So just checking in perhaps with how your body is feeling, with what your body is telling you. This often looks a lot like our energy levels. It can sound kind of like what our body is just craving. Or perhaps if we were asked what we need in this moment, that the answer to that would be this language almost without words that our body is telling us. Go a little bit closer towards the surface of the skin and just start to notice how this pose feels within your legs. There might be some tingling already starting to happen with this slight inversion, feet above heart. Notice if you're tensing into any of the muscles of your legs, can you just soften and relax? Allow your heels to rest heavy against the wall. Notice if it feels like you're lifting your body away from the ground. That's a pretty good indication that your muscles are holding you up, that they're contracting and gripping. And so can you just loosen that grip and allow your body to rest a little bit heavier? Maybe even drawing your hip bones up towards your bottom two ribs so you get that slight pelvic tuck and a little bit more space in the lumbar spine. And then can you just simply breathe? And allow yourself to let go of this visual sense around you. So just dropping into darkness. Just dropping into depth of this moment and all that it offers you to interact with. Your body was given to you as a vehicle to experience your life. So from the top of your head to the tips of your toes, that our body is this housing of our consciousness. And it allows us to feel, to taste, to touch, to see, to hear, to come into this full experience of living. And when we are fully immersed in this experience, we are present and centered. So know that you can use any of these senses today to just bring yourself back to a place of feeling really supported and really grounded. Whether it's the sound of your breath, awareness of your space, or even awareness of your internal environment. We're gonna stay in a inversion still. So you can keep your hips against the wall. If you want to take out the bolster or pillow underneath your low back, you are welcome to if it's starting to feel a little bit uncomfortable. Otherwise, you can just leave it there. You slowly begin to bend into your knees. So your knees are gonna come into your chest. You might even take your hands to wrap around tops of your shins, backs of your hamstrings. If it feels nice, you can always rock side to side. You should feel a little bit of a deeper opening in the lower back. We're coming into reclined bound angle or butterfly against the wall. So you'll gently begin to splay the knees out to the side, taking the pinky edge of your feet to the wall and soles of your feet together. Okay. Now this is where blocks or extra pillows can be really nice to prop up your thighs. So you can use as much support as you'd like to hold you up. You don't have to, but know that that's always available. Allow your heels to just slide to wherever is comfortable. So they don't have to be all the way in. They might be further up. that your body will let you know where it's able to come to a place of rest. Okay. Now there is always the option available if this isn't serving you against a wall. You can take this pose on the ground, and instead of being hinged at the hips, you'll just be laying flat on the earth with knees out to the side. So just start to notice the sensations of the shape, maybe how that's shifted from the last, and just feeling into your body of what this new experience, this new moment offers you. I find with this home practice, it's a lot more challenging to stay accountable to the practice, to stay within our practice and be present, because there are so many more distractions around us and there's a little bit less accountability. And so for me, I found just being able to connect with breath really grounding, even more so than when practicing in a studio or at a gym. And so if it helps, you can always try by just taking your hands over top of your belly, or one over your heart, one over your belly. And just bring your attention to that gentle rhythm of the expansion, the lift of the rib cage and belly as you inhale, and the softening as you exhale, belly hollowing out, rib cage closing in. If you've chosen to take a hand over your heart, you might even be able to feel your heartbeat. And it just becomes this really gentle rhythm that you can sync up with. This rhythm that's always within the present moment, so it becomes our anchor to the practice and to ourselves. Now, if this feels good where you are, you're kind of settled in, you don't really want to move, just stay as you are. If you want to take this into a reclined dragonfly, you are welcome to just gently bring your hands to your knees to lift your knees back up through center, and you can keep your props as they are. You'll extend your feet up the wall again, so legs are straight, kind of where we started, and then you're going to simply spread your feet wide apart so that it's almost like a wide-legged fold but inverted. Okay. Now you might have to adjust to your props. This can be too much for the inner thighs where you were before, so you can always take them up onto a higher level or in closer towards the crease of your hips. The further out the props, the more open your legs will be. And know at any point you can always bend back into your knees and take soles of your feet in to land back into butterfly. Okay, so there's a couple of options. We're only going to be here for just over a minute left. Okay, so know that you have agency, that you get to choose where you land today, and choosing through this inner wisdom, inner knowledge from the body. So letting go of what we think we have to do or think this has to look like, and really just listening to what your body is craving, what it needs, those soft whispers of self that we begin to find as we go beneath the layers of the skin and the muscles. just find that inner guide and honor that. Knowing you can always take a break or shift or lessen intensity when we're being guided in that direction. Because ultimately, you know your body the best of anybody on this planet. That you have lived in this body for years. And when we start to embrace what our body is telling us, we create this trust with self that will always show up. So when our body says it needs a break, that we really listen, we give back, we feel that. And when our body says it's feeling stuck, that we just start to move through that. So always, always, always coming from a place of love of the body, love of self. And really take your time when you are coming out of these shapes, especially inversions, as you're working against gravity. So try to stay soft through the muscles. And you can slowly, if your feet are extended out, you can make sure you don't press into the knee, either outer thigh or calf, and start to close your feet towards center. If knees are out to the side, just lift your knees back through center. And then it might feel nice to take your knees in towards your chest again and gently rock. Feeling into some compression. You're gonna come away from the wall now. So similar to how you came into this shape, you'll just press your feet against the wall so that you can lift up your hips and then slide your pillow or blocks or whatever you had underneath you out from under. And then you're just gonna turn yourself so you're now parallel to the wall and you're laying onto your mat. If your mat was lengthwise, you can always just shift yourself, just walk yourself away. Okay, so you come out to a lengthened shape, still lying on your back, and just take a nice big full body stretch. You'll reach your arms overhead, point into the toes. And then as you exhale, stay as you are, but just soften into your joints. So elbows might bend, head relaxes. Take 2 more breaths just like that. So inhale breath to lengthen and expand. And exhale to release. Take 1 more breath. Inhale, reach. And exhale. Let that go. Bend into your knees. Slowly roll yourself over to your right hand side. Head can rest heavy into your right bicep. And just take a bit of time here to get comfortable, to allow your spine to reset, that there's really no rush. And when you're ready, you'll use your left hand to press yourself up to a tabletop. And this can just be nice to create some movement, some fluidity in the spine. So you could gently drop your hips side to side. You might take a couple of cat-cows, especially if you've been sitting a lot in the start of your morning, to just create a little bit of space. You kind of flush out the body from anywhere that it does feel stuck. Okay, so request for heart opener. So we're gonna come into melting heart. And know that there is a more restorative variation of this in using props, but you don't have to. Okay. So with melting heart, you'll just gently begin to walk your hands away from your body in tabletop so that you land with your elbows underneath or in front of your shoulders, forearms to the mat, and forehead down. So ideally, hips stay above your knees in this shape. But if this doesn't feel good or it feels like too much, you can always take a pillow behind your elbows for your chin might rest on it, or your heart or your belly. So there's no perfection in where this is placed. You might have to shift yourself further back or forward. Okay, but know that that's available if the variation without props feels a little bit too intense this afternoon. Think about hollowing out through your armpits. With each inhale breath that you take, feel the lightness of your body. So it's almost like you're pressing into the ground and you feel a lift up towards the ceiling. And as you exhale, whole body becomes heavier, melting towards the earth. So that you're really experiencing your breath outside of our normal autonomic response, that we don't really have to think about the breath in order for it to flow. But now can you allow your breath to actually become an experience? Your breath is something that you can feel, that you can move with. Your breath almost feels like this living organism. That it holds a whole lot more importance than we typically allow it. And perhaps we just send a little bit of gratitude to our bodies for this incredible breath. Now, last minute of this shape, if you want to make this a little bit different and work more into the triceps, the back of the upper arm, you can always take your hands together into a prayer, and then still keeping your forehead on the ground, float your hands up and over top of the back of your head so that your thumbs land to the nape of your neck. If you want less sensation, walk your elbows closer in. If you want more lengthening, walk your elbows further away and then literally melt through the heart. Try to soften your shoulders down your back, away from your ears. And remind yourself that how you feel in this shape isn't how you'll always feel. So we often get stuck in the present moment thinking that we need to shift, we need to change. But if we just simply breathe, we trust that the present moment already is shifting. From when we started this pose to where we'll end it, that each breath is a part of that journey that brings us through. So perhaps letting go of that need to control, taking shifts if your body is telling you, but notice if it's the mind talking. If your mind is starting to panic, can you acknowledge that and then just simply breathe? If your arms have come up and overhead, you can gently release your prayer hands down, separate your hands, and then slowly walk your hands in towards your body. So you're lifting back up through tabletop. It might feel nice to curl and round through the spine, tuck chin into chest, or even to sit hips closer towards heels. And eventually we'll make our way onto our seat. So if you need some movements here, you're welcome to take those. And you're facing the right edge of your mat. So turn yourself over towards your left hip. Okay. So it's almost like you're sitting like a mermaid with your right leg stacked over your left. And then you can start to gather your props if you want them for this next pose. Separate your legs, so your right knee is going to slide more towards the back of your mat or the short edge. For deer pose, ideally your legs are 90-degree angles with shins parallel to the edges of your mat. Now with that being said, yin is a practice based on functionality, so it doesn't have to look like this. One knee might be closer in or more extended, so play with the pose. But in this shape, we're going to take our weight into our front hip, and then with your hands walked out in front of you, hinging at your waist, you're going to start to lower to the ground, but you don't have to lower completely square. So there might be a little bit of twist. If you want, you might lower more over top of your knee rather than your shin. If it feels better, you might twist more over top of the thigh. So it's going to give you different sensations depending on where you choose to land in this shape. If you notice that the outer edge of your back knee, or sorry, inner edge, gets a little bit sore being on the ground, you can always just place a soft pillow or blanket underneath for that extra support. And then notice where you're holding yourself up, and can you just drop into this pose? So relaxing into your muscles. Allow yourself a little bit more space to simply be in the present moment. So when our distractions get too big or too loud, they start to pull at the edges of our being, and they start to knock us off center, off this connection with the present moment. And distractions can be things outside of ourselves, but distractions can also be within. So it could be sensation that you're experiencing here. It could be the fluctuation of your mind and the varying thoughts that are traveling through. It could be emotions that are bubbling to the surface just of how you're feeling. And now this doesn't mean you have to push them out. That thoughts and emotions and sensation, they only become distractions when we give them the power to. And power is in awareness and attention. So allow yourself to notice the thoughts, to notice the feeling, the experience, but then simply let that go. So the next experience, thought, sensation can show up, and we can be fully present for that one. When we start to lose our footing, we feel off balance, it's often because one thought or emotion has come up and we've diverted our attention to it. And then we start to get lost in the intricacies of that thought or emotion, and it's almost like they begin to snowball on one another, creating a bigger and bigger snowball that's just diving us into that distraction. And there really isn't a particular formula for how to release out from that, other than just coming back to the present moment. And so whatever it is that keeps you grounded, that could be your breath, could be just starting to notice the sounds around you. You might even just place your hands onto the earth and feel the support, feel the weight of your body. But ultimately, the fact that you notice that you were distanced from the present moment, that you had jumped out of your awareness and into a narrative or a story, maybe from the past or maybe of future concerns, that awareness that you've lost it in itself is a sign of growth and a sign of healing. So try not to bring any judgment towards yourself for those times you fall out of alignment within your practice, because it's always this opportunity to simply recenter, to realign, and to do so in a way that is loving and kind. gently begin to peel yourself away from the ground. So walking your hands in towards your body. Use something a little bit different to get into that internal rotation of your hips. Okay. You're going to slowly turn towards your back leg. So it should be your right, but if it's not, just making sure that you're turning away from the front shin and over towards the back knee. Okay, flex into both feet, so you're supporting the knee joint. Now you might stay here. You can play with rolling your right hip towards the ground, so it's going to be a little bit lifted. Now this is going to feel pretty deep, and it might even feel a little bit pinchy in the joint. Okay, so that's okay. If there's pain, just ease out of the depth, but try to stay in the twist. A couple of options if you want to take this deeper. You can press your right knee and right ankle in towards the ground without using hands or anything. So it's just going to be the activation of the muscles pressing your weight down. You can play with this active lengthening and movement of the body. As you push in towards the earth, you're going to feel a bit of resistance. And then just holding that resistance will soften the upper body. We'll hold for about 2 more breaths. And then soften and relax, and you might even play with hinging for a breath or 2, drawing your heart towards your right knee, right thigh. And then slowly lift up through center and then unravel. Now you can use your right hand to guide your right knee forward and in front. Walk your feet out wide and walk your hands back behind you, and then just gently wash your knees over to the right and over to the left. So we're going to simply find the other side of deer. So begin to shift your feet over to the top of your mat, over to your left, so you're on your right hip, and then separate your knees. So your left knee now drawing out to the side. You can flex into the feet to support the knees. Notice any stickiness in that left hip. Okay, know that that left hip can be slightly lifted in the variation that we're going into. And then again, just setting up your props. When you feel ready, you'll begin to hinge forward, and this should feel nice in that right hip that we just did a bunch of the internal rotation on. Play with where you want to fold. So whether that's more over top of your knee, more over top of your shin, it's going to move the sensation around a little bit. So know that you have that agency to choose the pose that your body is most craving. And I find that that's often the shape where it feels really juicy or it feels like there's a lot of resistance. So try not to overthink this. Just close your eyes and start to explore and feel into the shape. And then once you've determined where you need to land, just begin to soften into that place. Okay. Now know if you chose somewhere and it's not really serving you after some time, you can always shift and adjust. Okay. But just making sure that when you are making these adjustments, it's coming from this deep inner place of knowing rather than from fear of not being able to hold or a fear of the pose or of the discomfort, that it truly is what our body is saying it needs. And it's always a fine line to walk between too much and too little. And that really is the yin practice, is finding balance between the release that we need, okay, and our egos and the depth that we think we need. Okay, so just taking the mind out of the driver's seat for a moment and allow your body to really take over. And then almost as though you're separating mind and body, that you are this observer of the experience, and you're just beginning to notice. Noticing the environment around you, the sensations within. You might even just start to notice how you feel within this practice but also just how you feel in a more general sense. So acknowledging your own energy levels, allowing room for emotions to surface without having to hold on or judge. And why this is really important is that our feelings give us incredible information about the world around us. So our feelings give us this awareness and knowledge of how our body is responding to the present moment. And so when the present moment is a little bit challenging, when there's been a lot going on, our feelings are an intuition into our needs, really, in that moment. So if we are feeling anxious or worried, it's often a sign of something outside of ourselves that is happening that we're attaching to. And so just to honor and notice the feeling so that we can go deeper to the trigger or the root of that feeling and just start to become aware of that situation. And if you do notice that there is a root to how you're feeling, notice if there's anything that you can do about that. Or do we simply just need to surrender and let go? And know that there are no good or bad feelings. That each feeling is valid, it has its worth. And that it arises out of something that has happened. And so when we are feeling confusion or even grief at the loss of how things used to be, confusion or uncertainty in how they are, know that this is valid. This is based on what has happened, and this is how we are responding. And it doesn't make us weak to feel, it doesn't make us wrong or right, that it just simply is. And to acknowledge that is to acknowledge self, and that we are worthy of this experience of living. And I think it's this reminder that nobody promised that life was not going to be hard or challenging, that we've set this own expectation. And so perhaps we just use our feelings to navigate through what we need in that moment, to feel grounded, calm, and connected. And gently begin to peel yourself away from your mat again. And coming back into seated, so you'll keep the same shape of your legs, working into internal rotation of your back hip. When you're ready, you'll begin to twist towards your left knee. You flex into the feet, especially in this shape. And you might just play with rolling your left hip towards the ground. You might play with pressing through the knee and ankle, like you're trying to create a deeper imprint of the inner edge of your shin into your mat or into the ground. You might even just hold here. So lots of different ways to approach, whether you're hinging, you're actively pressing your leg into the ground, or you're just simply sitting upright. But allow your eyes to close and just take a couple of deep breaths as a reminder that you are supported by breath here. That each breath is taking you towards the end of this shape. You might even already notice how the right hip sensation has started to fade. Let's just take one more deep breath, maybe still pressing down. And then as you exhale, you can release any tension. Those of you that were pressing down might play with folding. And eventually, you'll make your way back up through seated. Then you can scoop your left knee around and in front. planting into your feet. And you can just gently wash your knees to the left and to the right. Really focus on taking those knees in through center. So we're getting into that internal rotation as well. Okay, we're gonna come back to a heart opener. Supported fish. So there's a couple of ways that you can move through this. I'll cue you with blocks and with bolsters and pillows. So you're gonna gently begin to make your way so that you can, setting up so you can lay lengthwise down your mat, but don't lay down just yet. So if you do have blocks, you'll take the blocks on different angles. So they'll be typically about one level apart. So I like the block underneath the shoulders on the medium size. I like to take it across the shoulder blades, but you can also play with taking it up and down the length of your spine. Just make sure that where the block is, the heart is what's going to be lifted. Okay. Second block will come underneath the back of your head. And then I would take this one at the highest level. You can take them on the same level, but it's going to be a big throat opener. So just making sure you're comfortable. Okay. If you have pillows, you can place them so that they're lengthwise down your mat. You can also stack more pillows at the far end so that it's up on a bit more of a ramp. So you're looking to lift through the heart. Feet can be planted as you lay back. And if you are coming into the shape with pillows, make sure that your low back is no more than about a fist width distance from the support of the pillows so that you're not taking a really, really deep bend into the low back, but you're not also losing the lift of the heart. Okay. And then arms can come out nice and wide, palms face up. Now if you want, you can play with extending your legs out long, toes turning out to the sides. It might feel nice to just gently rock your head side to side a couple of times. So you're gonna feel this down the outer edge of the neck, maybe even down into the arm. This is one of my favorites for releasing head, neck, and shoulders. If it feels good to do this motion, you can even play with just pausing on either side and holding there for about 3 full breaths. Just softening your elbows towards the ground. And then lifting up through center and taking 3 breaths to the other side. And eventually you will find stillness in this shape. And in stillness, it gives you this opportunity just to reconnect with what's available for you in this moment. I think so often we feel like we need these things outside of ourselves. And a big part of that is we're moving so fast all the time that we forget to take that internal look at what we already have. So when we're feeling overwhelmed, we need a distraction to get us outside of that information input, and we need a distraction to get us outside of that situation. And what we forget is that we already have that space. We already have that distraction, which is actually just the present moment. Because in the present moment, you are completely grounded. Right here, right now. You have everything you need. You are safe. You are supported. You aren't lacking anything. And so just to come back to the present moment as that reminder that even here, you don't need anything to fix or to make yourself feel okay. You have this beautiful breath. You have this incredible vessel and vehicle of your body. And when this vehicle is just experiencing a little bit too much emotion, thought, it's getting pulled out of center, is just come back to what's real in this moment. Okay? The support of the ground underneath you, the agency to shift your physical body if where it's landed isn't serving you. The breath to breathe through any challenges, any distractions. And the love to always, always, always come back, no matter how many times we lose ourselves in this practice of mindfulness, of presence, that there's always the unconditional love of self to just start over. And to remember that each time you start over is growth, is a reminder of the healing that we are doing here. Now, if you are really comfortable to land in this space for Shavasana, you are welcome to absolutely just stay as you are in supported fish and take a few moments to close off your practice. If you'd prefer to come into more traditional Shavasana, you'll simply roll yourself to whatever is your favorite side or just wherever your body naturally rolls. And then you'll take your bolsters and blocks off to the side, and you'll just slowly bring yourself back through center and onto your back. And you can always take your knees into your chest, rocking side to side. You can place your pillow or bolster underneath the backs of your knees if you want that extra support, or you can just simply lay down, palms facing up, taking up as much room as you'd like here. And so as we close off this practice, it's a really beautiful reminder of our opportunity to let go and surrender so that we can come into this place of rebirth and awakening. Shavasana is roughly translated as corpse pose from Sanskrit, in which so much of yoga philosophy was written. And it's this place where we just simply let go within the practice. It's the figurative death of whatever wasn't serving you. It's an opportunity for the death of the ego and for any of the attachments that we've gathered throughout the past few days, months, maybe a lifetime. And an opportunity to just cultivate more space for our true self beyond the ego. And while we let go of thoughts, feelings, expectations, judgments, limiting beliefs, know that they may resurface, coming from past patterns or old wounds or even current events that are triggering us to go back into those old ways of being. And so this is a process, and it's cyclical, and we'll go to a place where we learn how to let go, and then we'll start to gather up again, and we might notice we've attached, and then we come back into letting go. So it's this cycle of rebirth and death and rebirth and death that we're slowly just working through. So honor the moments that you have chosen to let go or release, and know that that's enough. Know that it doesn't have to be perfect, that you might fall back into that same pattern, and it's really just the awareness and knowledge that you now hold of noticing and being able to respond with love and kindness. I'll guide you out of your Shavasana. If you want to actually stay here, you are welcome to. Otherwise, you can just gently start to wiggle into fingertips and toes. You might rock your head side to side. Really take your time to bring your awareness back into your body. You might hear that a whisper from the body that you want to lengthen out, so you might take a big stretch. You might need to curl in and just be in this place of safety, wrapped up tight. Eventually you will bring yourself over to either side and you can press up to a comfortable seat. And you might roll your shoulders once or twice. You can keep your eyes closed. And then you'll gather your hands to heart center in Anjali Mudra, this offering to self. And so often with our hands in Anjali Mudra, we press the palms together, but it's actually done by keeping a little bit of space between the palms. So fingers and heels of your hands together, and then hold that little pocket of space for yourself to remind yourself that you are free to feel into your life, to experience, to explore, to get curious. And then you're also free to just let go and hold that space for the next experience to come in. So this rebirth of self as you reawaken into the rest of your day. What could you bring into the rest of your day from your practice to guide you further? So much love, so much gratitude from the bottom of my heart. Namaste.